Hey, it's Craig Haskell, author of The Inside Game of Syndication Wealth, and I'm also founder of the Value Hound Academy, where we help real estate professionals like you break out into building your wealth, helping you syndicate those great deals you come across. Well, I want to welcome you to part 6, a syndication case study. And in this 7-part video training series, we are digging into the syndication platform. We're digging into it big time. Why? Because it's a much needed training, and unfortunately many real estate professionals are confused. They're mystified. They lack the understanding of what syndication is. So in this training series, we're answering the basic questions of syndication to help you better capitalize on this platform, because it's a great opportunity for you to build your wealth, and you're already in the game. But what I find is, unfortunately, there's a lot of real estate professionals who are out in the game kind of wasting and missing these wealth building opportunities because they're scared of syndication. And I want to change that. So let's go through what we've already gone through in this 7-part training series. We've gone through basically 5 parts. We're going to talk about part 6 today, but let's kind of do a review of what we talked about, right? So in part 1, we uncovered really what a syndication is. The starting point. We talked about the basic structure, the foundation of a syndication. We also talked about who the players are and how syndication works. And in part 2, we covered how a syndicator actually makes money. What types of fees can they earn? What are the back-end profits that they can expect? And we talked about why this is such a great wealth building opportunity. And then in part 3, we covered the complete journey of a syndication. We actually went through the big picture roadmap of what it takes, and we went through actually 20 steps during that process. And then in part 4, we talked about the big mistakes. There's 4 big mistakes that new syndicators make, and we talked about how to avoid them. Then in part 5, we talked about the money raising process, right? That's a big mystical part of this whole business. And there's actually 8 steps to the process, and we went through those 8 steps, right? So let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to walk you through a syndication case study. And this case study is 2 of my students who have actually gone full cycle on their first deal. They bought a property and they sold it, and they went full cycle. So I want you to take this under advisement. This case study is only for education. I want to give you an insight on how this process works. So I'm putting together a case study. And during this process, you're going to see what these guys went through to put together their syndication. You're going to actually get a look inside on how they put together this deal and how the process works. But please, guys, don't measure yourself against these folks that I'm going to talk about today. I don't want you to think that you can do the same thing or get the same results. Because really you come from an entirely different background, different circumstances. So your results are going to vary. I mean, it could be worse, could be better, right? But I don't want you to measure yourself against these guys right here. I just want you to see the opportunity that's available to you, and I want you to see the possibilities of putting together syndication, because it's open to you. You're in the game. All right, let's get started. On a recent trip I took out to Florida here not too long ago, I stopped by the offices of Todd and Adam to catch up and see their progress. As you can see right there, there are a couple of my students, and this is a picture of their office out in their lobby, and we're standing in front of pretty cool artwork in their lobby. And as you can see, there's a good looking crew right there. And what we have right here is we have Todd, we got Adam, and we got Craig standing right here, right? So these are the guys. These are the guys I want to talk to you about. And from the time I started coaching them, gosh, back in 2013, they've since gone on to really build a sizable portfolio of over $150 million in assets under management. They really have taken off. But it really all got started when they got their first deal done. Nothing happens in this game until you get your first deal done, and their business actually really exploded. So what I want to do is I want to show you their first deal, because both guys their backgrounds were in private real estate, private equity real estate, and they were employees for companies, and they were in the professional game. They were dealing with acquisitions and asset management type situations in all different types of real estate. They were in the office sector. They dealt in the retail sector, multifamily sector. So they really had a lot of valuable assets within their current business to pull from, to leverage their syndication business. And you might be surprised the types of assets that you have in your current business to leverage. And so we took advantage of that. And but unfortunately, like most new syndicators that I work with, I'd say probably 90% of them, they have no focus. They have no focus. They don't have a plan on what they want to do with their business. They're what I call chasing rabbits. They're running all over the place trying to put something together. I don't know about you, but you ever feel like that? Huh? Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I do, right? It's just hard to say no sometimes, but we need to specialize on a rabbit. We need to focus. So the first thing that I needed to do with these guys was give them focus. Focus, right? On one investment strategy. On one investment strategy they become experts at. On one rabbit. They need to find themselves. They needed to be known for something. And they needed to get out and spread the word about who they are and what they stood for. They needed an investment strategy that solved a big problem in a big market. So after some research we did with these guys, they decided they were going to focus, right? Focus on multifamily. Right? That was going to be their focus. They were going to focus on the Southeast part of the United States. And their investment strategy was they were going to buy mismanaged properties that they can reposition with, this is the key, a student lifestyle. That was their focus, right? Their focus was creating an amazing lifestyle for their students. And ultimately, this became the backbone of their syndication business. This is really what they got known for. This is why they quickly built their syndication business, because they had a core concept, a core investment strategy that all they did was focus on one investment strategy. And that was buying multifamilies in the Southeast that catered to the student market. And so they're looking for properties that fit that investment strategy. So let's talk about the 4 steps, right? The first thing that we need to do with these guys was set up the 4-step money raising process. And the first thing that we had to do was we had to create a pitch book. And you probably heard that before here, especially through these training series and part of the Value Hunt Academy. We're all about the pitch book. And the pitch book really is built around the investment strategy. That becomes their story. That becomes how they're going to go and make a lot of money for their investors. I mean, investors want to know exactly what's your plan to make money. So we're going to put that in our pitch book. Second thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a list of investors, of potential investors, guys that we have in our database. We're going to tap into the resources and assets that we already have sitting in our business, and we're going to add them to our list, because you have a lot of hidden assets currently in your business that we tapped into with their unique background, and we came up with a great list of investors, right? So That's step number 2. And step number 3 is, now that we have this really compelling pitch book and we got to list investors, we're going to go out and meet with investors. And I showed them how to actually talk to these investors. What are the hot buttons? What are the investors looking for, right? And we talked about the big problem that their investment strategies uncovering, how they're going to make a lot of money for their investors. And so we talked about that in step 3. And then step 4 really comes down to the database, right? We got all these interested investors. And so we got to start to build our database of investors and say, yeah, I'm excited about what you're doing. Add me to the list. You're going to ask them a question and to see if they have an interest. And if they do, they're going to go in your yes database. And you're going to build that yes database. And then once you do that, the next step is you got to go out and make offers. You got to find a deal. You got to find a deal. Now that we have our pool of investors all lined up, right? We got to go out and find a deal. So we got to find a deal, a great deal, right? I mean, what most people do is they go out and find a deal first, and they go out and try and raise the money. Well, as you can see with Todd and Adam, they had a pitch book about a core concept of who they are and their investment strategy, their brand. And they went out in the marketplace and tapped into some of their investors they had, built a database. They already had a pool of excited investors. So they're ahead of the game. So their process was get the investor set up first before you find a deal. Well, right now, they're at the point of finding a deal because they already had a group of investors. So the next thing that they had to do is they had to go out and source deals. And then when they found the deals, they had to analyze the deals, right? They're going to go through and we're going to find some properties that don't work, but ideally we're trying to find properties for them that fit their student lifestyle. And if they found a deal, which they did, they would put it under contract. They'd tie it up. And they weren't afraid to make offers on deals, guys, because that's the game. Is you got to put it out there and make some offers to get some deals tied up, and they get it under contract because they already had the investors lined up in advance. And you're able to go back to the database and say, hey, remember that deal we talked about? The investment strategy we talked about that you were excited about? Well, I went out and found the perfect deal. It's taken me a while, but I found the perfect deal, and we're going to load the truck. So let's take a look at the first deal, or their first deal that they found. This is Todd and Adam. They found this 48-unit property, and it was in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was a property that was distressed, right? It was having problems. It was mismanaged, right? Because that's part of their investment strategy. They had this investment group that owned the property. They actually bought a troubled note from a previous seller, but they didn't really know how to manage the property very well. They were struggling with it. So Todd and Adam made an offer to buy the property. And during the closing process, Todd and Adam found another distressed asset. It was on auction.com. Right? And it was a 48-unit property that was right next door. And with another 48 units, they had a total of 96 units. They actually packaged up both properties into one syndication and went out to raise the equity and raise the debt. So on the debt side, they were able to get a short-term note, and they were able to get a note that was non-recourse. There you go. So they were able to get a note that was non-recourse, and they didn't have any great financial statements that showed they had a lot of money, or they didn't have a huge background of experience, and they were a little nervous about that. But what they did find is they found an entrepreneurial lender who loaned on the business plan. Yeah, they loaned on the property. Short-term money, this is bridge type money. That's what they got. So the equity side was a lot easier than they actually thought. They were able to go back to the database of investors, like I talked about, and say, hey, we found this great deal that we told you about, our investment strategy. This property fits perfectly, and it's a perfect match for our investment strategy. So they went ahead and were able to raise the money. And not only did they get the money from the database investor, but the same investors that were excited, they also referred other investors that they knew, making the raising of the money process pretty easy. It was a lot easier than they thought. But unfortunately, or fortunately, as we go through these deals, there's lots of ups, there's lots of downs to the process. And they had to overcome a lot of inaccurate property financial records from the seller. The lender was trying to grind them a little bit, if I recall. And obviously getting their first deal done was a mental challenge. There's kind of things holding them back. But ultimately, in the end, like everybody does, they found a way to persevere and they got their first deal closed. And since the property was close to a top college, they were able to rebrand their property with a student housing lifestyle. And they renovated the property with students in mind. They added the services and amenities that appealed to them. They added a top-notch property management company to lease up the property. They really got the property up and going. And during the term of the investment that they held it, they were able to deliver cash flow to their investors on a consistent basis. And all investors were happy. So let me take you full cycle on this deal. So this is the deal. And we're going to go full cycle. So when they had bought the property, they really projected they were going to hold the property for 4 years and they were going to double their investment. But what ended up happening in late 2015, so 2 years after they had bought the property in late 2013, they were able to double the investment in 2 years instead of 4 years. More than double. And so I'm going to round off some numbers here to keep it simple. So their total all-in cost was $7 million. That was the purchase price of the two properties, all the money they raised, everything all in, $7 million. And they raised, money raised, $2,850,000. Again, I'm just rounding numbers off here. And then their total selling price a couple years ago was $11,300,000. And that generated a net profit of $4 million in 2 years, guys, in 2 years. And that doesn't even include the annual cash flow that they got during the holding period. So what we have here ultimately is Todd and Adam became Wealthy Syndicators on their first deal. They got paid nice fees, they got paid back-end profits, and that's how they became instant millionaires. What about you? How many of these deals do you need to do every year? Couldn't you just live on the fees and use the back-end profits to build your wealth? The package, the back-end profits? No, for most of you, this might be a big deal. Might be too big a deal for your first deal. And you might not find so much of a home run on your first deal. But guys, couldn't you just find one deal, one great deal, a small deal to partner with investors and start building your wealth within the next 12 months? Just one deal? Come on, guys, this is your game. This is your profession. You're already in the game. I know you can. Well, that's it for part 6. Let me tell you a little bit about part 7. I'm going to spend some time showing you how the syndication deal process works and how it can be a business, how it can be a profitable business. I'm going to show you how it can be done. I'm going to walk you through this scenario you can see right here on your screen, and actually how syndication works if you start to add up all the different things you're working on, projects, and some of the packages put together to build that back end profit. Okay, so guys, if you need more help, we've got the Value Hound Academy, obviously, where you found most of this information, and dig into that deep, because there's all kinds of resources, there's articles, there's podcasts, interviews, there's videos, there's all kinds of information to help you with your syndication business. Every once in a while we have some upcoming training seminars and webinars and events and so forth. Keep your eyes posted for that. If it's something that you want to do and you want to take your game to the next level, and you want to jump on the phone with me, I want you to go ahead and contact Nikki. That's Nikki at valuehoundacademy.com. That's NIKKI at valuehoundacademy.com. So guys, I hope you got some valuable information out of part 6 here. We're going to catch up with you in part 7 and talk about how this can become a business and how you can make some money. Catch up with you later. Take care.